Got Kush TV. After a stellar 2019, your #1 Black conscious media platform is getting ready to go into overdrive for 2020. As we promised, last year we launched The Inside. We premiered the pilot for the Black Group Economic Show. We dropped 2 new seasons of Wordsmith, the #1 platform for artists with a message in the music. We've seen you out on the road, the Black Carpet Awards, the Reparations March, the Legacy Center of Excellence, and more. We brought you Dr. Mumbi, the legendary Bob Andy, Queen Diambi, Kemi Seba, Esther Stanford Hossein, Leo Mohammed, Brother Leader Badlaka, and more. And now, 2020 is set to see Got Kush TV taking it to the next level. First up, look out for the official launch of the Got Kush TV website, your official portal for all things GKTV, including new shows, news, views, and reviews, soon to be serving you with advertising opportunities and the launch of the GKTV African market. GotKushTV.com will also be a global hub for all things Black, conscious, and empowering from all over the Black world. Black achievers, Black excellence, education, health, positive Black imagery, entrepreneurs, Black brands, and charity work. All this and more can be found here at GotKushTV.com. Then there's the new shows. Decipher, the dynamic discussion and debate show. Health is Wealth, practical tips for living in wellness. Kush Communiversity, home of Black Warrior Scholarship. And UK Fire Entertainment, bringing you a slew of music videos for your listening and viewing pleasure. Look out for more of The Insight, Wordsmith, and the full 3rd season of the Black Group Economic Show, all coming your way soon. As always, the GKTV film team is available for hire to cover your events and all filming needs. Visit us at GotKushTV.com for hire inquiries and more information. Stand by all Black businesses through our website, social media, and show content. We have monumental advertising, sponsorship, and network opportunities catering especially for you. Got Kush TV is about to take off. To join us for the ride, there's 4 things you can do. 1, subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell to make sure you don't miss a release. Join us on all social media and hit up GotKushTV.com to subscribe to our mailing list for exclusive opportunities in the near future. 2, like. Let us know you're feeling our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. 3, comment. We want to hear your feedback on everything we're putting out. So make sure your presence is felt in the comment section. 4, share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is Got Kush TV. We look forward to building with you throughout 2020 and servicing you with high quality Black media production. Got Kush TV. Beyond discussion, beyond debate, we put the power in Black media. Microphone check 1, 2. I mean, greetings, kings and queens. You done know inside. This is Got Kush TV, your #1 Black conscious media platform coming out of the UK, and it is another quarantine convos. We are here to service you. You know what I'm saying, with information, inspiration, and all the things that you need to keep you going through these times of lockdown, COVID. Is it a pandemic? Is it a pandemic? Is it not at all? And why are we on lockdown? Would there be a second wave? I don't know, kings and queens, but we do know that today we have a very, very important conversation for you today. So whilst you're here, make sure when you come through, you hit that like button, raise the profile of this particular conversation in the digital space. If you are not subscribed to Got Kush TV, subscribe to Got Kush TV and make sure you hit up the website, gotkushtv.co.uk. Once again, that's gotkushtv.co.uk. We're going to be conversing with a very, very brilliant and erudite brother. And as you know, kings and queens, we are but a week away from the most watched election ever in the world, kings and queens. Yes, indeed. You know that the American election, yeah, is very, very well watched because the nation of America cast a very large shadow over the rest of the world. And as you know, Western democracy goes, the world looks to places like America and places like the UK in terms of how to engage in the democratic process properly. Indeed. And it's going to be interesting because, you know, I'm in the UK and our guest is in the US of A. And the UK is actually the daddy of the US of A, Kings and Queens. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna have a what's it called? Let's say a neo-colonized link up, yeah, in terms of the politics of neo-colonialism as it relates to our experiences across the waters. But in relation to the American election, there are a few people that I would consider to be more qualified to give us a correct and proper analysis of the dynamics of voting and electionary politics in the US of A than our guest, Brother Omowale Afrika. Greetings, Brother Omowale.
Peace, Brother Shaka Ra. Peace to my God Kush family over in the UK.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad to be here with you today.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you, my brother. For those who may not be aware of you, and I think this is actually your first time on Got Kush TV, so welcome. You know what I'm saying? Welcome.
This is my first time. I've definitely been looking forward to coming through, chopping it up. So I'm glad to be here today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let the people know who you are, just for anybody who's new to you.
Peace to the family. My name is Brother Omowale. I'm a grassroots organizer out of the Philadelphia area, former president of the UNIA and ACL Division 121 located here in Philly. Currently serve as the Vice Shanuti of Afrocentricity International. And within that particular role, I oversee our youth programming. I oversee our African Heritage and Cultural Preservation Fund, which is a global fund that we've put in place for the specific purpose of preserving African culture. So we have projects right now, one on the African continent, another that we just recently started in Haiti. So
give thanks, bro. Give thanks. Right now, I'm going to be sending out the link here at some point in the show, family, for you to interact with Brother Omowale. So please, note your questions, and you can actually post them in the chat. But if you'd like to come live and interact with Brother Omowale, you'll be given the opportunity to do so a little bit later on. So do stay tuned for that. For now, bro, we've got you on because we are in US election season. It is the most watched election around the world, apparently. And you are in the process of releasing a film called An Un-American Dilemma, the question of Black loyalty, in the 2020 election. So just break down what this film is about, and then we'll get into some specific issues to do with the election itself.
Yeah, so the Un-American Dilemma is actually a play on words. The title is loosely based on Gunnar Myrdal's 2-volume text that was released in the 1940s, referred to as the American Dilemma. It dealt with the question of democracy in America. So what I wanted to do with this particular documentary and the significance of it at this particular moment is, as you know, during an election year, anytime on the plantation, an election year is a time of significant uncertainty, a time of significant fear and anxiety amongst most Black people on the plantation. But unlike any other election before the 2020 election, I have never seen the Black community in America as divided as we are today. And leading up to this election, I mean, I've seen all types of language being used by people who profess to be radicals, people who profess to be revolutionaries, people who call themselves, the children of Nat Turner or the children of Malcolm X. But these same people are referring to radical and revolutionary youth as traitors if we profess that we do not want to participate in this particular system, or if we say that we will not be voting in this election. We've been called, race traitors, cultural traitors. I mean, just you name it, idiots, fools, all types of just very interesting language, coming from, mostly the older generation, but you also see a bit of crossfire, within our generation as well. So I knew that I wanted to put something on record that would be an entry that would speak to the significance of this moment. And, I don't think any other example that we can look to other than, Nana Malcolm X, when he wrote The Ballad of the Bullet in 1964. That was a political entry for a generation that even subsequent generations to follow could look back and understand what was happening in Black political life at that moment, but also more importantly, what we need to be doing in our particular moment. So with this particular documentary, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create an entry that would illuminate what's happening right now in the present moment, but also give clarity, right, to a future generation who wants to look back at this moment and learn the lessons that many people are missing in this present moment.
So, bro, you're not voting, bro.
Absolutely not.
Bro, how can you not vote, bro? How can you not take part in and use your constitutional right? Our ancestors died for the right to vote. If you don't have a vote, you have no voice. Yeah, and so you can't sit on the sidelines, Brother Omowale, and not partake in the process, yeah, and act like you're doing something. If you don't vote, you don't have a right to have to speak on matters pertaining to your community and these kinds of things, Brother Omowale. It's very irresponsible of you. Why are you not voting?
Well, first and foremost, I think we need to completely throw away the logical fallacy that if you're not voting, it means that you're sitting on your hands and doing nothing. I was speaking with one of my Jegnas recently, someone who's been involved in movement politics for quite a while, and he said to me that somehow along the way, within our community, we've kind of like switched it so that voting has become the required thing to do, and organizing has become the optional thing to do. It's like you can organize or not organize, but you have to vote.
Right.
When it should be the other way around, that like organizing should be what's required of us and voting should be optional, right? And we make that assessment in terms of if that's something that we want to pull out of the toolbox based upon what it has gotten us so far. What we've seen over the past 50 years is a corruption of Malcolm X's by any means necessary, right? Because the integrationists have taken by any means necessary to mean it starts with the vote, and then any other means that we can tag on. Any means definitely includes the vote. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm arguing, what I did with the documentary is I just basically put the vote within a historical context. I kind of like gave people an understanding of how we as a people have engaged and used the vote within America. And there's always been two sides to this story, right? There's always been two sides of the coin. But what I argue is today is that for the past 40 years, the Black community has suffered from, and this is not my terminology, I have to give credit to my brother Obi Egbuna Jr., but the Black community has suffered from acute spectrum deprivation. And what that means is that when you look at the spectrum of Black political thought, whether it be socialism, nationalism, Garveyism, whatever you want to call it, the large majority of the Black America has only been exposed to integration or radical integration. Right. So their complete understanding, their lens in which they view the world, their lens through which they interpret our political situation is only done through this particular ideology, through this particular way of interpreting. And therefore, when that's the only way you can see the world or make sense of the world, someone like me who's saying I'm not voting, it just like throws off your calculations because you don't have the skill set, so to speak. You don't have that particular, system uploaded, right? That particular software uploaded that can help you to actually make sense of what I'm saying. So that's what I'm doing with this documentary. I'm trying to do a massive software upload. I want everybody to upgrade to their iOS 14, but you got to be plugged in to get here. We got too many people still plugged into iOS 1. And we're in 2020, and the political situation is just a lot more complicated and sophisticated, and people are still using, ideology and a framework from the 1950s, and it makes no sense.
Correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, but if I was to use my own observation, similar situation would exist in the UK, that in spite of let's say the political immaturity and the political distortions of our ancestral legacies, yeah, it would seem that there's a higher number of our people politically engaged at the moment on the ground in America. Would that be a correct observation?
No, absolutely. It's very difficult to tell at times because, right. I mean, I saw a number yesterday, and it was either I read an article or it was either on a timeline, but somebody has estimated that about $14 billion has been spent so far on voter propaganda, basically get out the vote propaganda. And it becomes difficult to tell how effective or ineffective this messaging is because like we're bombarded with it. Right. And a lot of what we see is political theater, right? Mm-hmm. When I'm in the barbershop, when I'm talking to the other everyday like brother and sister on the street, they are clear to me. Like, they're not voting. They're like, listen, nothing changes. Like, this is their perspective. But if
Right.
you're looking online, or if you're looking on the TV, you're going to see Negroes dancing and partying. Every entertainer in the world is going to be on their IG Live telling you about the importance of the vote. Revolt is going to be hosting conferences with AT&T. What's Jay-Z's network? I have it on my phone. Title
I know,
is
yeah.
going to be doing whole, seminars on the vote. So it's like, it is.
Cardi B is going to be meeting with Joe Biden.
Listen, it's what was that?
Cardi B is going to be meeting with Joe Biden.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it's everywhere. Now, for me, I'm looking forward to November the 4th, so I can have a better understanding of was this overwhelming bully pulpit or peer pressuring, was it effective?
Right.
Because if Black people don't show out and numbers, then it's going to tell me that Black people are waking up. They are no longer allowing themselves to be herded to the polls by the influencers, the celebrities, the know-nothing politicians. Black people are truly waking up, and they aren't falling for the banana in the tailpipe. But if Black people show out in numbers, I'm going to say, man, like, it shouldn't be so easy for them to pimp us like this, But it is what it is. So I don't have, if I had it my way, then every Black person in America who's of intelligence or consciousness would sit home on November the 3rd. We would opt out in favor of freedom if I had it my way. But the reality is, we are fighting for the mind space of our people. And people who have ideologies or frameworks that are really based upon self-determination or freedom, we are slowly being deplatformed. Right? What's the guy's name? Zuckerberg just met with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, last week to discuss creating new rules for the internet in terms of dialogue and discourse and how they police harmful language. So it's like, okay, who determines what's harmful, right? So when we saw a couple of years ago when they started, deplatforming people like Rush Limbaugh and some of the white racists, like, we as nationalists should never celebrate that, because once they take their voice and kick them off the internet, like, we're next, because we're talking true freedom. You understand what I'm saying? We're talking true sovereignty, true self-determination, and therefore, like, we're always in this space where our content is being censored and policed heavily on these particular platforms.
Two quick things, my brother. The first thing is that I want to let people know that Brother Omowale mentioned Brother Obi Egbuna Jr. And that name, should be familiar to every Black man and woman in the UK. It's often not, because his father is actually the father of Black Power in the UK, Kings and Queens. Yeah, Obi Egbuna Sr. is the father of Black Power in the UK, and so I was going to put that out there. We'll come back to that at another point. But the too few Africans in the UK know that name. And so we didn't want to put that out there. And secondly, in relation to what you just said, Brother Omowale, I'm reminded of the fact that when the FBI under the Obama regime raised the bounty, on the head of
Mama Assata Shakur,
the agent, and I use that word for a multiplicity of different meanings in this regard, who was in blackface at the time, who made the announcement, said words to the effect, no, in fact, said the words, "She continues to spout her terrorist ideology." Yeah, that's what she said. So that's what he said, right? You know what I'm saying? So we have evidence already on record for what you've just outlined. We're gonna get into the politics of Biden versus Trump, Kamala versus Pence in a second, but I want to go back a little bit, right? Because something was very interesting to me, Brother Omowale. We had a similar dynamic over here in the UK, whereby there was a prominent left-leaning candidate, in the Labour Party by the name of Jeremy Corbyn. He actually made it to the leadership of the party. You had a similar dynamic where you had a credible left-leaning candidate, right, on the books in America. Feel the burn. Feel the burn, brother.
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah? Now, I want to ask you, bro, was you feeling the burn? Right? That's the first question. Was Omowale feeling the burn?
I definitely was supportive of Senator Bernie Sanders in 2016. Where I was in my political trajectory,
Right.
or development at that time. Absolutely.
Yes,
I had a million and one reasons to be supportive of that. But I'm thankful for that opportunity and that particular experience, because it really sent me on a journey
right.
of developing myself politically and getting an understanding that has now situated me where I am today.
Explain that then. Just what was your journey from feeling the burn to feeling a cool breeze?
My journey from the political honeymoon to the political awakening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I actually talk about this in the documentary.
Right.
Wow. So there's so many different layers to it, but
Mhm,
essentially, the catalyst event for me, like many people, was a traumatic one, right? So back in 2016, on July the 5th and July the 6th, we had two on-camera murders back to back. We had the brother Philando Castile and
mhm,
Alton Sterling were murdered, like, a day
mhm,
right after each other. Like, so for me, probably a month prior to that, or maybe a month and a half prior to that, I had just joined the UNIA,
mhm,
because I knew I needed to start developing myself, politically, to get an
mhm,
understanding, right, and to raise my level of political maturity.
mhm,
But that, from that moment to where I am now, and I've just been consistently working to kind of like take the blinders off, you know what
mhm,
I mean, and look at the world as though, as it really is.
mhm.
And um, Dr. Clark had said something in one of his last interviews, that he had with a brother by the name of Professor Todd Stephen Burrows.
Mhm.
And Dr. Clark has said, I don't have a religion, but if I do have a religion, it would be for me to pursue the search of truth, and to have the courage to face that truth, no matter how scary, or whatever it looks like. And
Right.
I think that for me, like, that's the way that I've been moving, over these last 5 or so years, really just like doggedly in
Mhm.
search of truth, meaning in search of true freedom for our people.
Yes.
And regardless of what I see or what I uncover, having the courage not to, to cower or walk away, and
Mhm.
continue to look the devil right in his eyes, and move forward.
Right. Understood. Understood. Now, my thing is this year, because I think I understand why a lot of people were taken in by Bernie. I think from a certain political perspective, he passed the eye test. Yeah, in the sense of the fact that you've got these establishment figures on either side, and what Jeremy and Bernie did effectively was go beyond what we're used to hearing from mainstream politicians, right? So I understood why a lot of our people would be taken in by that, just based upon our socialization in the society. What interested me, however, is that Jeremy got a lot of support from the black community in the UK, yeah, and a lot of the
Bernie,
African community.
yeah, Bernie did not get support from the black community in the U.S.
And that's what's very interesting to me, right? Because it taught me something, because I'm watching a lot of I was gonna say mainstream black media, but I'll just put it out there. I was watching like a lot of Roland Martin, right? um and regardless of my critiques of the brother, he's in an important space, yeah, in terms of popularizing black conversations and black issues and them kind of things there, right? So it was very interesting to me to watch the conversations, yeah, through that show, yeah, and how it seemed to be people went out of their way, right, to nail Bernie to the wall,
Hmm.
but not for the sake of black people,
For the sake of Hillary Clinton.
for the sake
And
of Hillary Clinton. Right?
and
So I couldn't, like, it was amazing to me to watch
yeah,
it, and then for the sake of Bernie, right? So not Bernie,
yeah.
sorry, of Biden, yeah, of Joe Biden. So so I'm getting the view of how mainstreamed, yeah, the black community in the States seems to have become, if that makes sense.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. Oh, wait. You hit the nail on the head. Like,
right?
first and foremost, bro, I would tell you this: there is no loyalty like a slave loyalty.
Right, right,
Like, not every African on the plantation was a slave.
right,
Some
right,
of some of the black people on the plantation were captive Africans.
right,
Right.
right,
Other black people on the plantation were actually slaves.
right, right.
A slave is a very loyal creature to his master. So it's like, when you're an African
Yeah,
trying to make sense of the behavior of a slave,
yes.
don't do that, because you're gonna really mess your mind up trying to make sense of what it is that they are doing. But so let me tell you what happened.
Right.
Obama as a corporate product, as a corporate creation for mass consumption, was something that black people in America swallowed whole. And if you recall, even like halfway through his candidacy, black people were throwing Obama under the bus in favor of, their masters, and in favor of the Clintons. But when it was shown that, Obama would win, and, this Cinderella story would come to its fruition, what occurred was millions of black people became American overnight. Like overnight, it was like, I'm not black, I'm American. You know what I mean? It was like overnight, black people had, had a vested interest in this American experiment, in this particular project. So what you see happening is some black people started to, wake up down the stream and realize that, we were sold a bad, bag of goods with Obama. However, there were some black people who knew from the very beginning, right? So if you go back to 2008, to the great debate, the great Harlem debate, where you had many of the luminaries in the conscious community and the intellectual community come together to answer the question, is Barack Obama good for the black community? The large majority of, the scholars in the African-centered tradition took the yes, he is good. Mama Marimba Ani was one of the lone voices who strongly stood in opposition to Barack Obama and what he meant for us as a people. She was one of the lone voices that took that position. But what happened there is, from the moment when Black America starts to get mainstreamed and Black suffering starts to get silenced even more, you start to get this chasm that's slowly spreading in Black America. And in 2020, that chasm is at the widest point that it has ever been. Right. You have Black folks on this side that are talking about our country, our president, our Constitution. The whole Malcolm X, we sick boss. We got a whole army of them. And those Black people on this side are looking at the Black people on this side like there's something wrong with them. So the whole thing I started at the beginning about this whole conflict about people calling, you crazy, you're an idiot, you're a fool. In Black America right now, and it's a very interesting time to be alive, to see Black people literally, and I put this in an article that I just wrote. You have Black people who have built up hard-won political capital over the past 30 to 40 years and are now spending it on the architect of mass incarceration, all while at the same time telling Black people in the community who are critical of this person to shut up and vote, or shut up and sit down, or if you don't vote, then you don't have a right to talk. So again, back to the documentary, that's why I wanted to put this documentary out right now. And that's why I worked so hard to produce it, because somebody has to put something on record. And to date, we don't have anything on record. We have lots of pundits talking. I'm pretty sure you're going to have lots of, opportunist scholars after this election writing about what just occurred. But nobody is putting a message or a record on an entry on record right now and in the moment. And that's kind of like what I'm looking to do with the documentary.
Right. Now, you've taken us there, yeah. So let's go into this, some specifics here about these candidates, yeah, and because I mean, everybody seems to be promoting the fact that they've got a plan for the Black community. Have you looked into these plans in any depth?
Brother, I don't need to. There is no plan that can be specific for the Black community that is legislatively tenable in America. Right. It is impossible to get any legislation through the House, through the Senate, and to the president's desk that is specific, targeted at addressing Black people. It's a non-starter. So when you understand that, the most that any Black person can get is trinkets or some type of position as an individual from this system. Collectively, we're left out to die. And Garvey told us that 100 years ago, what they were pushing us towards. They were going to let us build up the country, and then they were going to, you know, leave us off somewhere, you know, to starve and to die. You know, that whole benign neglect. And that's essentially what we see occurring. So those of us who are rejecting this system have already reached that understanding, right? We're not ambiguous about that particular reality. We're not hiding behind this notion of harm reduction that many in the black elite like to hide behind. They act as if their vote is some type of benevolent gift on behalf of the black masses, but in reality, they're just trying to protect their comfort, and they're trying to protect what little gains they've been able to make as individuals on the plantation. They could care less about the masses of our people, but those of us who care about our people, we're saying like we need to be moving in a different direction because we see what's coming down the pike. So why should we waste our energy pouring all of our trust and all of our energy into this, you know, bankrupt system? You know, I ask people all the time. I say, hey, answer this question for me. If a group of people went to a foreign land, killed the people on that land, raped their daughters, murdered their fathers, butchered their sons, and then that group of people went to another land, kidnapped the people, brought them to this land, enslaved them, made them build the land up, and then they created a government to rule over what they had created. At what point does that government become legitimate? At what point does that become an entity that has the right to govern over your life? And for me, I would argue never. It's always been illegitimate. So why should I grant it some legitimacy by engaging with it as if it's something that has the right to rule over me? So
go on.
I'll stop because I don't want to get on soapbox.
No, it's fine. All right, so in that regard then, bro, because I'm saying like the talk then is basically, look, this is the game in town right about now, yeah? You want to play Monopoly, all right, that's fine, but this is Scrabble, yeah? It's chess, yeah? It's whatever, right? So, like, we can leave Monopoly till later on. Right now, this is the game, yeah? And the game, the players on the board are Biden versus Trump. That is it. That is the options that you have, and one has to be worse than the other. What there must be a lesser of two evils in this specific scenario, and for most people, it has to be Trump. Trump, who said about the SHIT whole countries. Trump, who called all these people, all these immigrants, what do they call them? He characterized the Mexicans as rapists or something like that. He made all these derogatory statements about black female journalists and all kinds of different things, right? He's basically putting forward policies that support the 1% in America. It's got to be. So is there not an obvious choice to be made, at least if we were looking at these two specific candidates? Is one not worse than the other?
Why you want to set me up with this question? Why you want to give?
That's my job, bro. That's my job. It's my job. You know,
this is the analogy that I will give you, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Trump, you know, Trump is the very unattractive girl that somehow you make it home from the club with.
Yes, sir.
And you know, you're with her, but you don't want to be with her with the lights on. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because with the lights on, you get to see what you're dealing with. You understand what I'm saying? I think that Biden, on the other hand, is that same unattractive girl,
right?
But the lights are turned out.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? But I don't know if that hopefully that analogy wasn't too lewd. But essentially, you know, Trump makes us face and look America right in the eyes and see who she is. Like, you know, Trump is the absolute manifestation of what America is. Yes. Right. Biden is the lie that you want to believe America is, but in his actions, you'll always find the truth. You understand what I'm saying? So in that regard, you know, because I have no faith in this system, you know, one is barefaced Americanism, and one is, you know, a bit more, you know, where's the mask of the lie that America tells about itself around the world to hide that she really is Trump. You understand what I'm saying? So that's kind of like the position that I take on that.
All right, so I'm gonna ask you about two different subjects now. Yeah, one is the '94 crime bill, and the other is Ice Cube. Yeah, we'll get to Ice Cube. Stay tuned, Kings and Queens. If you're just joining us, this is Got Kush TV, Quarantine Convos. We're speaking to Brother Omowale Afrika, who is in the process of releasing, a film, a film called The Un-American Dilemma, the question of Black loyalty in the 2020 election. We'll get more information about where you can engage that particular film a little bit later on in the show. Do stay tuned. I'll be sharing the link shortly, and you can come on and interact with Brother Omowale. You know what I'm saying? Anybody who dares, to come through and confess of your sins, for voting for either Trump or Biden, feel free to do so. We want to hear your perspectives today, Kings and Queens. You know what I'm saying? Pull it up against the Brother Omowale, and
please do. I'm
Yes, sir.
open to the dialogue for sure.
Yes, sir. All right, so Brother Omowale, there's an article that's been released here by USA Today, and it says, fact check, the 94 crime bill did not bring mass incarceration of Black Americans. Now, it would be true to say that this is popularly considered to be the case, and it is amazing. I agree with you that in spite of this, this is seen as the number one diehard choice, for seemingly for the majority of Black people. But I'll read a segment from the article, and you can respond to this as you see fit. It says the subheading mass incarceration started in the 1960s. Stephen Ross Johnson of Knoxville, Tennessee, a board member of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers and past president of the Tennessee Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, told USA Today that it is, quote unquote, sorry, this thing has gone funny. All right. It is, quote, unquote, oversimplistic to say that the 94 crime bill led to mass incarceration. Asked if the bill caused or largely contributed to it, Johnson says, the short quote, the bottom line answer is no. Was it a link in the chain? Yes. Is it the beginning of the chain? No. Unquote. Johnson argues that the roots of mass incarceration can be found in the late 1960s. This is very interesting. And the early 1970s, with legislation that created, among other things, the RICO statute, which broadened the scope of federal law as the war on drugs began to take shape. So this article is attempting to correct, what it considers to be a fallacy in the voting conversation at the moment, right? I think that particular statement that I've just read out reveals a lot. What is your assessment of this? Is it a fallacy? Is it in fact true? And what does this article reveal in its attempt to rebut this so-called fallacy?
So what the article is attempting to do is to piss in your face and tell you that it's raining, right? and their attempt to diminish the impact that the crime bill, in terms of its negative impact on the Black community. Yes, it is absolutely true that the trend of laws towards mass incarceration starts in the 1960s, late 1960s, going into the 1970s, as a response to the Black Power movement, not to the Civil Rights movement. As a response to the Black Liberation movement, you get this, trend and laws that seeks to deal with the problem of this radical population that there is no employment for. Right, you have all these because one of the findings that came out in the there were so many
Carter Commission
and the Kerner Commission, right? One of the things that they found was that, like, the average rioter, right, using their language, I believe was like 80% of that population was like somewhere between like the ages of like 15 and 20, and was male and Black, right? So basically young Black men representing this revolutionary and or radical potential within the nation for disruption, right? So you have to do something with this body of people, right? It doesn't look good for America to round them all up and march them to the gas chambers. So therefore you have to find other methods of ethnic cleansing and warehousing this body of unwanted people, so to speak. You understand what I'm saying? But so yes, the crime bill was not the start of it. Nobody would ever argue that. But I would absolutely argue that the crime bill is the fucking crown jewel and the crown of mass incarceration. Like, it is the singular piece of legislation that has inflamed the numbers like no other legislation before it. So to try to diminish the impact of the crime bill, so that you can kind of say to black, almost like gaslight black voters into saying that, hey, you really don't know what you're talking about. You know, Jim Crow Joe is actually this nice guy, and hey, by the way, black people also were asking for the crime bill back then. Like, this is a bunch of like nonsense that only the most low information and historically, retarded voters would go for.
Address that last point, because I am seeing a lot of information about that so much percentage of black people and so much percentage of black politicians and so much percentage of black church folk supported the crime bill. And is that not the case? And if it was or was not, what is
it? It is not the case. There were plenty of vocal opposition in the black community towards the crime bill at the time of the crime bill. But as always, whenever someone is being dishonest, is not making an argument in good faith, they're only going to show you those people that, hey, this person was for it and they were black, but hey, all these people were against it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they want to make it appear that, hey, black people's neighborhoods were just so overrun with crime, and black people were begging for the government just to do something to protect them from their own children. And so therefore black people were calling for this, and they were just so, thankful to Joe Biden and to the Clintons for, for this, massive crime bill. When the reality is, the crime bill, at least on a part of the Democrats, is in line with other legislation that Clinton passed, where he was attempting to regain some of the white voters that they lost during the 60s who went over to the Republican Party. Right. Yeah. So Clinton was attempting to pull the Democratic Party, back to the center, so to speak, so they can regain that lost white voter. Because the Democrats took a major bloodbath in between, basically, Nixon and Clinton. Between that period of time, I believe there was only one Democratic. Only one Democratic president. So when Clinton got into office, Clinton pretty much ran as a Republican on the Democratic ticket, right? So if you look at all of his legislation, deregulation, right? Whether it be the communications industry or the banking industry, deregulate. Militarization, meaning the militarization of the southern border between Mexico and America. And the reason why he was pushing for this militarization, because NAFTA, he knew that NAFTA was going to destroy the economy and Mexico, and therefore you were going to get this significant pressure of Mexicans or people below the border running northward to America to gain access to some type of economy, knowing that theirs has been destroyed. So he started with the militarization of the border, cutting welfare, increasing tough on crime. These are all Republican initiatives that were passed by Democrats, and it's if we're being truthful, that's what occurred in America, but nobody wants to have that discussion.
Yeah, bro. Similar thing happened over here in the mid-90s with the election of Tony Blair, the left-leaning Labour candidate that basically ran as a centrist conservative, so to speak, in that regard. So I'm just demonstrating the linkages between the two systems. All right, so we've got that then. Let's go on to Ice Cube, yeah? In fact, let me just ask you the general question first of all. What do you make of Ice Cube and the contract with Black America first and foremost, and then what has happened with it since the supposed meeting with the Trump team?
I place Ice Cube in the bucket of black celebrities. Therefore, my perspective on 99% of black celebrities in terms of their interfacing with the black masses politically is that they are agents of chaos, and that they are disruptors. They do more harm than they do good. I think that Ice Cube has wonderful intentions. But I think that the level of political naivete that Ice Cube represents is dangerous for black people. But we also have to recognize, we see movements like ADOS, which represents the hallmark of black political naivete. And one thing that they share in common with ADOS is, and this comes from Nellie Fuller. If you don't understand racism, white supremacy, everything that you think you understand will only confuse you. So for Ice Cube to be trying to get a contract with Black America signed, he clearly doesn't know who he's talking to, because the people who have put Black America and black people all across the planet in the position that we are in, they don't honor contracts. They don't honor treaties. They don't honor truces. They don't honor constitutional amendments, right? Whatever you can write it on the finest of paper. They're not going to put anything in place or honor anything or enforce any law that is going to change the status quo. And the status quo under the global system of white minority rule, which is based upon the philosophy of white supremacy, is that black people are going to be the burden bearers until white people can find an effective means that a large majority of white people will agree upon to eradicate black people from the planet. That might sound like a radical statement, but that's what it is if you understand who you're up against. So like trying to take some contract to these people to sign, then it's the whole tone talks analysis that white people haven't redressed or repaired us because they didn't know how. They didn't know who we were. So we needed to create this new identity so that they could better understand who we are. And also we needed to do the data so that they can better understand the wealth gap. And now they can better understand how to pay us reparations. It's silliness that comes. And I'm not calling Ice Cube silly. To be very clear, I think that what Ice Cube is doing is of noble intentions. I think that it's righteous.
Yeah.
You won't get me, knocking it down in that way. But again, coming from, movement transformation is bottom up, not top down. Right. So Ice Cube, his level of celebrity has put him in an unfortunate position where he addresses the grassroots from top down. And therefore he's never going to, it'll be very difficult per se for him to come into contact with the type of analysis he needs to come in contact with, because at the top of the grass is all types of confusion.
It's an interesting case. Yeah. The reason being is because this is Ice Cube. Ice Cube is responsible for giving us some of the finest revolutionary but gangster music ever in the history of hip hop, right? And there was a time when he would have been considered one of the artists that was most connected, to the grassroots in some way, shape, and form. So it's a very interesting situation. And
but not. So here's one of the things that we have to clarify.
Yes.
In the 90s, there were a great deal of pseudo-revolutionary kind of like nationalist formations that were developed. And that's not me like taking a dig at them, but like, whether it be the Hebrew Israelites or the who was Dr. York's group.
They had a few names. At the time that would have been Ansar at last stage, but they grew to become known as Nawapians.
So like the Nawapians, the 5% Nation, the Nation of Islam, like these were all actually a lot of them actually have the same like root. They were almost it's funny, some of them are really outgrowths of the Garvey movement, but took on a religious or millenarian flair, so developed, over time. In the 90s, you see like this gross, and by gross I mean like numerically, right? Like not in terms of disgusting, but this significant explosion in these religio-nationalist movements that are comprised of the Hebrew Israelites, the Nation of Islam, the 5% Nation, and the Dr. York's people again, the Nawapians. So that's where the large majority of rappers got caught up at. Like they all really, for the most part, got caught either with Nation of Islam or one of those other religious groups. Like they never really got any type of like revolutionary, whether you want to call it scientific or or on the other side, the African centered or Afro centered. They never got that level of analysis. For the most part, that generation stopped at their level of development was a bag of you got the metaphysical and the conspiracy and the religion, like all in one bag. So like the 90s was really a whole big bag of confusion.
I understand what you mean. Now in relation to this contract now, obviously the brother caught heat because apparently the Trump team called him in and he went in, right? Which was interesting to me. And I saw flaws in it, but my critiques were not the critiques that everybody was making. So how do you see? Oh no, sorry. Before I get to that question, Brother Omowale, let me give you a prelude to that question. We hear talk, and this is an argument that I have a lot of sympathy with, that we live in a society that has laws, and we need to be organized to basically what's what's it, to basically take advantage, yes, of the laws and the institutions of the society in the best way that we can. And many people, even if they're not really for national politics, they promote local politics, yeah. You know what I'm saying, you know, and I know in America it's different to over here in terms of you vote in your police chief and them kind of things there, right? Why would you not engage in that? And if you are in a community, why would you not engage in the politics that would at least allow you to have some influence on how your direct community is run?
That's because people don't understand the history of the political, the way politics works here in America. Um, Historically, national politics in America were governed by local politics, right? What you had was in each of the different municipalities, you had what was referred to as political bosses. This is during the age of what they referred to as machine politics, where basically you have the machine is operated by local party bosses at the city level, who essentially man the operation of getting out the vote, and within that type of framework, massive like corruption really has always existed. And so black people for a significant portion of our history have always been subjected to party politics. What happened is, if you look at like the history in Black America, as a part of the Great Migration, black people numerically became the majority of a lot of the urban centers in America, like so the cities, places like Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC, right? We become numerically the majority of these populations or of those cities, right? So what happens is then the cities can then no longer play the role that they once played during the era when machine politics reached its height. Right, so cities used to be like their own little fiefdoms, but that power, due to the party, was slowly stripped away, and now you have these national, control of what's happening at the city level. So things aren't truly controlled at the local level. But as someone who has been a grassroots organizer for a very long time, my first introduction to local politics was when I was 19, 20 years old, right, in Philly. And Philly is it's a neo-colonial city, right? So black masses, but a black, corrupt, complicit neo-colonial leadership, right? So black mayor, black DA, black police chief, all black.
Sorry, bro. Sorry, you're saying black though, bro. I need to ask you: are these people black or are they ADOS? That is the differential that we need to clarify.
I like that.
No, because what we're hearing is that there's a fundamental difference. If they're ADOS, then they're going to work. There's a great. They're going to work with people.
So right? all the people who I'm referring to, are the people who this new ideology would classify as ADOS. Right.
They're not Jamaican immigrants.
Yeah, no.
Their grandfather's not from Haiti.
These are first and second generation Northerners.
Right.
Meaning that they were either they themselves were the first in their family to migrate from the south to the north, or they are the children of people who migrated from the south to the north. Like this is what I'm talking about. Right. I don't like that whole ADOS nonsense.
I'm just clarifying, bro. I know someone's gonna say that's because the ADOS is allowing non-ADOS black folk to speak for.
No. Okay. That's not the case. And to be clear, I've learned to I confine my critique of ADOS to the ideology and to its founders. The people on the internet who have like found some type of hope or belief in ADOS, I'm not critiquing them. Because like I said, America invests. Did I just mute myself? Can you hear me?
You're good.
All right. America invests billions of dollars annually for spectrum deprivation, right? To keep black people politically ignorant. So I'm not upset, that somebody may have fallen for ADOS, right? Because I always state that there are parts of their argument that has validity. But you can't really build a false kind of like, you can't build a false argument without an element of truth baked into it.
Yes, sir.
So, but again, to back to answering your question in terms of like local politics, I was saying that when I was 19 years old, 20 years old, like this is my first experience and engagement and in seeing kind of like behind the scenes of what local politics operates like in a city like Philadelphia. And bro, when I tell you that it is a complete den of thieves, a complete den of snakes, like ultra corrupt, like the local is really nothing but, you know, it's a microcosm of what we see on the macro level. So to think that you can take any of this machinery that is meant to subjugate you and then somehow, like, you know, repurpose it and use it as a system of governance for yourself, it's again, it's naive. And furthermore, I think that black people are intelligent enough to create their own systems and institutions to govern their people and provide political resources for their people. I think that we're afraid to do it because what that means, it means that we have to put ourselves in opposition to, you know, to a group of people or a system that is terrorizing us. So many of us don't want to take that route, but I think that we're intelligent enough to do it if we had the courage to pursue it.
I think it's interesting that we find it easier to go in on other black people than the institutions that oppress us. But in having said that, let's get to and this is an interesting comment. Let's get to the response to Ice Cube, yeah, and taking his contract to the Trump administration and the backlash, yeah. So what did you make of the backlash? Because I find it very interesting, and I'm going to address this comment later on. Go ahead, bro. You're muted at the moment, it looks like.
Apologies, brother. Apologies.
Go ahead.
The backlash. I don't know, bro. These are, again, I keep telling you, these are very you know, interesting times that we find ourselves in as a people. So nothing that Ice Cube said was wrong at all in terms of black people have not gotten anything for their loyalty to the Democratic Party. We haven't gotten anything in return.
Right.
So therefore, if somebody is asking us for our vote, you know, in the 2020 election, then they should be willing to present something to us in exchange for that vote. And what Ice Cube was asking for was them to sign on to, you know, their support of the contract with Black America. I think that that's, you know, on the surface, on its face, I think that that's, you know, an intelligent. Bro, is that you?
Dude, sorry.
You don't hear that static?
No. Oh, well, it might be me. Let me mute for a second. Hold on.
Yeah, I think that was definitely you. But I'll keep talking while you're fixing your situation. But what I was saying was that on its surface, on its face, it's definitely an intelligent thing to do. But I don't know, the backlash, simply put, is that, you know, Ice Cube is jeopardizing the Democratic vote. He's jeopardizing the Biden candidacy by asking for something in return for the vote, because the Democratic Party cannot offer anything to black people, because if they offer anything to black people, it's going to alienate the rest of their base. So the black vote serves as a like foregone conclusion, meaning the Democrats understand they don't have to do anything for it. It's going to be there. So when people start saying, hey, we want something in exchange for our vote, it disrupts the status quo. And a lot of people who eat off of the Democratic Party or off of being on that plantation in a position of influence, their position is now threatened because somebody like Ice Cube is telling the masses of black people to demand something in exchange for their vote. You're muted, brother.
The link is in the chat, family. Is the static still there? Is it gone?
It's there. I see you put it there. I got it until about 5.
No.
No. The link is there.
The static.
No, the static is gone. The static is gone. Static is gone.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. How long you got, bro?
I got into 5:30. I have a meeting at 5:30.
No problem.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, the link is in the chat, family. The link is in the chat. Yeah. So feel free to hit the link if you want to interact with Brother Omowale on any of these issues. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're a Trump voter. I want to hear from some Trump voters today. What's it called? But yeah, family, the link is in the chat. All right. So feel free to make use of that opportunity. Brother Omowale has 30 minutes with us. 30 minutes he has. So don't delay. Yeah. Click the link right now, Kings and Queens, right this minute now. I'll go through some of these comments that I was reading before. First of all, Vince Sear says the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 was passed with a 188 Dem voting yes and 46 Republican voting yes, and 130 Republicans voting no. I think the Dems are to blame for that one. Yeah. Okay. I understand that one. I'm going to address this comment about the Black Brit. First of all, I'm an African. What's it called? Living in Britain. I just want to make that very clear. But the article actually was being shared by a lot of brothers and sisters in the United States of America who are actually Biden promoters, or potential Biden voters, yeah. So I was, as you know, the person who is the interviewer, it was my responsibility to put that question to Brother Omowale. So I hope my brother God of Jacob can understand that. Apparently you're anti-Ice Cube because Cube is only representing ADOS, Brother Omowale. Yeah. I don't know if you want to address that.
And nothing in my statement was, I don't know if I want to address any kind of like parochial or elementary comments like that, because nothing in my statement said that I was anti-Ice Cube because he's representing this group that this brother just put on the screen. So,
all right, cool. On the political sphere, Brother Omowale, yeah. Is there a significant dynamic? And maybe I asked this before, but maybe not so directly. But is there a significant dynamic of the Black immigrant community speaking for the Black community in general in the political arena?
No, not at all. But I will say that establishment institutions, they prefer the Black immigrant community to be the representatives of Blackness, right? Because in America they do so. I understand like the whole reason for why you would want to disaggregate Blackness, right? Because the argument is a very it's not an argument that's hard to understand. What happens is if white institutions are using Black faces as the representatives of the experience of Black Americans or Black people in America, but the Black faces that they are using are people who have not have any political ties to the history and struggle of Black America, then yeah, I think that you have a right to kind of like to point that out and to call foul. And we understand why white institutions are doing that, right? There was this article that came out a couple of years ago that about college recruitment, where in terms of recruiting Black people, the college recruiters much prefer the recruitment of people from the Caribbean or people from the continent who are Black rather than Black Americans, because they find that Black Americans are more likely to make a fuss about race, right? Or but the Black Americans are less likely to accept the racism of a racist institution than our Caribbean or African counterparts, right? That's not something that can be denied. So that's something that's very true. I cover that in the Strike Drum lecture series. I have the first lecture, I think it was called the ethnic cleansing of Black America and the Black immigrant paradox, where I talked about how our enemy, selectively, plays chess with us, manipulates us. It's divide and rule. Tries to. So like nobody is denying that, but to make the argument that politically these Black immigrants are speaking for us, like that's a lie. The people who are speaking for you are the integrationists. You know what I mean? The Roland Martins of the world. But
he's a Haitian though, bro. Roland Martin's a Haitian.
Well, okay. Well, I guess. Right. I made this. I was just interviewed the other day. The ADOS book club started off their book club with they were reading a book on what's my brother's name?
Denmark Vesey.
It's like, so they start their book club off with Denmark Vesey as some type of ADOS hero, but Denmark Vesey is born in St. Thomas, right? Born in St. Thomas when he's about 8-9 years old. He's sold to a seaman, right? The seaman sells him into Haiti. The dude he sells him into Haiti says, "Hey, you sold me defective goods. I want my money back." Right? So essentially, he ends up becoming a servant of the seaman until the seaman retires in South Carolina. While he's in South Carolina, he purchases a lottery ticket in 1804, gets his freedom. 1816, he helps to found the African Methodist Episcopal Church. 1822, he's planning one of the biggest slave revolts in American history. But they count him as an ADO. Like, listen, I don't get caught. Like, it really is complete silliness. Like, folks like Tariq Nasheed, Vet Carnell, like Tone Talks. I think that they are heavily ignorant. I think that they are heavily politically naive, and I think that they do a disservice by attempting to separate black people from other black people in the diaspora and on the continent in an attempt to link up with white people and gain access to the resources of white America. It's some real slave consciousness, if you ask me. But right now, those people occupy mind space in the minds of a lot of our people. So it's not much that you can do about it. But Tariq is much more of a comedian than somebody you should be listening to for, political insight.
Stephanie, by the way, Kings and Queens, the link is in the chat. Yeah, I'm gonna share it again. I don't know why people seem like they're free to come forward today. What's it called? But you can come on and ask a question, give a perspective, yeah, in support or in challenge to Brother Omowale. It's all welcome as long as you come forward respectfully. So the link is in the chat. In the meantime, Stephanie Lynch says the problem with Trump and Biden. Look at the people who back Trump versus who back Biden. It's money versus humanity. What do you make of that assessment, Brother Omowale?
I would need more clarity on the statement before I weigh in on that.
All right. Well, I would attempt to provide the clarity, but I'll wait to see if Sister Stephanie provides it for us first. Let me just get back to, in the meantime, the documentary, Brother Omowale. I'll bring you back to this at the end, but let people know where they can stay in tune with all things to do with the Un-American Dilemma, and how they can engage and support the team.
All right. I'll share this with you in a private chat. This is a link to, so this weekend we're having a 2-day virtual summit called Remaking Black Power. At the start of both days at 5 p.m., we're going to have a private screening available of the documentary. Following the screening of the documentary, we have a Black Power roundtable discussion, 12 people on Friday and then another 12 on Saturday. I've really reached out to some of the most politically astute African or Black minds in the United States, and assessing their astuteness has been assessed based upon their level of activity, productivity, right? Because your actions or your deeds have to be the exclamation point to your words, right? So if all you do is talk, or all you're trying to do is build an audience, I'm not necessarily interested. But if you've shown yourself to be someone who understands it politically, and you're working towards, developing a certain political reality,
yes,
then I wanted you to be at this table to have this discussion on Remaking Black Power during the Black Power Roundtable discussion, which will follow the private screenings on both Friday and Saturday. So if you are interested in coming to one of the screenings, the Brother Shaka Rod just dropped the link. It says it should be Black Power Roundtable, but if you click on that link, you can access tickets. And
sorry, bro, you're rushing.
No, it's all good, bro.
It's
all good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So check that out, Kings and Queens. Come through. I'm endeavoring my best to come through as well. And join the conversation. Once again, the link to join the conversation is in the chat. Now, I want to ask you about this idea, yeah. Because, all right, so last year, when Revolt held that panel, yeah, featuring Candace Owens, T.I., Killer Mike, and so on. I believe it was last year anyway. The brother, I believe his name is Jay Morrison, was in the audience,
Mhm.
And he said that they're discussing a lot of micro, the politics of the parties and the voting process and the policies, but not a lot of macro in terms of who are we and what is our condition and them kind of things there, right? And there's two subjects here, one that has been heavily represented in the political discourse in this election cycle, and one that has not. And the first one is the issue of reparations. The second one is the issue of colonization.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I know that Sister Tierney Cherie and others are very much in the work of raising the profile of this idea that Black people in America represent a colonized community, a colonized nation. But we're not hearing a lot of that dialogue in the political discourse. What we are hearing is a lot of the reparations dialogue. However, the reparations conversation seems to be more prominent in the primaries than it seems to be right now, at the cusp of actually electing the next president of the United States. Is my observation correct? And what do you make of the way in which reparations, the issue of reparations, has taken place in this election cycle? And I'll come back to the issue of colonization after you've answered that.
Yeah, so the issue of reparations was forced onto the table by ADOS. Like so there
Sorry,
have
but
been
you're cracking up a little bit. I'm not
Can
sure
you
if
hear
it's
me
your
at all?
yeah. I think it's your connection. I'm not sure if it's your mic.
All right, do I haven't changed anything here. So
Yeah,
I'm
I know
still
it's a bit sticky. But go ahead. We'll try persevere.
all right. I mean, yeah, I want people to hear me clearly.
Yes.
But is that better? Is
Kinda
it
go on. Yeah, kinda
Oh,
go on.
let me I'll unplug my mic and plug it back in, see if that works.
No, I'm not sure if it's your mic. I feel like it's your actual connection that's sticking to the internet itself. But yeah, all
Got
right.
you.
The people that must say they can hear you okay. So go ahead.
Got you. So the issue of reparations was forced on to the national into the mainstream by the grassroots advocacy, mainly the virtual advocacy of the ADOS group. So Yvette
Mm-hmm.
Carnell and Tone Talks for, I want to say, like the last 4 years, they've been doing some excellent work around investigating and interpreting the wealth gap in America between black people and white people. And this, by the way, is probably like the root of like the call for disaggregating uh, blackness, which nobody would ever dispute. For purposes of analysis, right, for the people who were historically enslaved, in this nation, nobody would dispute that in conducting an analysis, you should only be using the people who were impacted based upon the scope of your analysis. So if the scope is limited to people here, then you're not going to include in the analysis all black people who are currently here. You're going to include those black people who were enslaved here. Like,
Most
that
definitely.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
Nobody disputes that. And you're right. Putting certain black people into that number is going to skew the data set, right? Because they have, although they were impacted by colonialism, their reality and their background in America, like, is not the same, right? So that conversation, like, doesn't even need to be had, because we understand, like, the need for disaggregation, like, for the purposes of creating analysis.
Absolutely.
So early on, Yvette Carnell was a Biden, I'm not Biden, I'm sorry, she was a Bernie supporter. In fact, she was anti-reparations. I can still find the article or the video she did where she came out blasting Ta-Nehisi Coates for his call for reparations. This is either in like 2015. That was arguing for broad-based class solutions, right? But when they recognized, right, that no type of class solution or redistribution of wealth would make its way to black people, they slowly moved themselves into the reparations conversation. Now, because they have built up this following that's tapping in with them every Wednesday night, 2 to 3,000 people for the study that they're doing on the wealth gap, naturally, when they pivot into the lane of reparations, they bring that group with them. But what they don't do is they don't link up with the people already doing the reparations work. They attack those people to position themselves in the front of it and start telling like all types of like crazy lies about those people. So this has been what has been incredibly dangerous. Now you ask, like, so I'm explaining here how reparations got on the national table. It got on the national table because of the advocacy of ADOS online, the pressure and mass swelling they were able to build on social media.
What do you say to the people that say that really it was Sheila Jackson Lee and the white woman, what's her name? He was in the primaries. The
Oprah's friend, the spiritual lady.
Williamson. Yeah, her.
They're not. Those people are not being honest because they want to be dismissive of ADOS. You can be critical of ADOS ideology. You can be critical of ADOS tactics without dismissing them and saying that they're Russian bots and that and that they didn't, mount an effective pressure campaign. Absolutely. You can critique them without doing that. Absolutely. For me, I have every right to critique them because they tried to bury an entire segment of the Black radical tradition alive. Right? She came out of nowhere when she started to make her way into like the reparations lane. She came out of nowhere with this video, I think in like 2018, 2017, Pan-Africanism is dead. Now, mind you got all these grassroots people who are working under the banner of Pan-Africanism, doing work, and she attempts to bury these people alive. These people are alive and kicking, and you're saying that they're dead. So that's what kind of like created and generated like a lot of conflict. But like, nobody can take away the fact that they effectively use social media to form a pressure group that put reparations in the mouth of every politician. That is full stop ADOS. Nobody can take that away from them. Now, why it's no longer on the table? Because the corporate media, the Democratic Party, and many of their operatives, circled their wagons and just strategically moved the discussion along. And by the way, they also fomented a significant amount of division. Like one of the big things that happened in 2019 was that split where, Tariq Nasheed peeled off half of their movement. So, and he, went and did this FBA thing. And then now he's making up, lies about who they are. He's calling them LGBT and, all this, other stuff. So he can, so that was a big thing that hurt us. Now you just have all this division of people who are already politically novices and just don't even understand who they're dealing with. So like, that's why reparations is no longer really a discussion. But the reality is, bro, so this week they're going to have Greg Carr and a few other folks having a discussion about reparations being on the ballot. And I'm going to state my position right here because, I have a good relationship with Mama Mashariki Jwanza, who's the national female co-chair of NCOBRA. I don't know Baba Cam Howard in that we don't converse frequently, but I know lots of NCOBRA people in Philly. Like I said, when I was over at the UNIA, the NCOBRA chapter would meet, at the UNIA's building. You understand what I'm saying? So I know lots of like NCOBRA people because they're grassroots. They've been around. My position on reparations is this. It's a debt that is owed. It's a claim that's just. Is it legislatively tenable? No, it's not. This is my position, right? And this is a very similar position to what Du Bois arrived at in the 1930s, where he said that when he was working to educate white people, he was hoping that some type of multiracial coalition that could be built that would collectively act on the behalf of black people. But he realized after 30 years of attempting that no such multiracial coalition would ever exist. So therefore, black people need to get to work to build their own separate institutions to protect them from the harsh climates of America. Because if we don't have no help coming from nowhere else. So for me, I argue that reparations is something that's not legislatively tenable. And corporate America, they have this thing called they have this thing called every corporation is required to have a bad debt policy. What that means is when I report my finances to the public and I report my accounts receivable, this means people who owe me money, my accounts receivable has to be reported net of bad debt. So I'm gonna give you the example. Let's say collectively all of my customers owe me 100 million, but based upon my write-off policy, I've assessed that only 50 million of that is collectible. Well, then I can't tell the public that I'm owed 100 million. I have to tell the public I'm owed 50 million. I have to report what I'm owed net of what I know I'm not going to receive. Nothing in my mind, nothing in history, there's no evidence that tells me that white people are going to do right by black people and give them reparations. I don't believe in moral-based reparations. I only believe in punitive reparations. And punitive reparations only come by way of a truce. When two warring parties sue for peace as a part of the peace deal, right? The winning side imposes reparations on the losing side. So they said, okay, we can end the war, we can do a truce, but as a part of the truce, you have to pay me this amount of money for damage that you've done to me. Right? We think that we're going to get them to pay us something without I like General Seti. General Seti said that if we want something from this white man, we're gonna have to take it out his ass. And I don't see no other way around that. Like, there's no way that black people in America ever get reparations through the ballot. So yes, HR 40 is on the ballot to study reparations, and a study might be a good thing. But in terms of like paying black people, man, listen, I only got so much energy and political capital, and I'm going to place my energy and political capital into vehicles that advance us towards self-determination, into vehicles that advance us towards strength, towards sovereignty, and towards power. I cannot, although I support the claim, it's a just claim, it's something that's owed to us. My energy cannot be used to beat my head up against a wall. I'd rather get a shovel and go under the wall or do something else. But I can't beat my head up against a wall because I only have limited energy.
Yes, sir. I know you got 8 minutes left, bro. So I'm going to give this clarification from Stephanie. And we're going to close out shortly after. So Trump is all about filing pockets, the pockets of the 1% who stand for no middle incomes, just rich and poor. When it comes to Biden, at least, the middle class stand half a chance. She said, but don't get it wrong. I stand for neither. Yeah. I think it's a lesser of two evils argument, or the best of the situation kind of argument.
Yeah, I would actually argue the counter to that. I would argue that white middle class, because when we talk about middle class, we're talking about white people, because black people are not going to benefit anyway. So I would argue that white middle class people stand a better chance under Trump than they do under Biden, because you get down to nationalists, meaning your first and foremost concern is to your nation and your people, versus globalists, which means your first and foremost concern is to the bankers and the global institutions that are seeking to bring about a one world government. So Biden and Obama and Clinton and all these folks, they, I did a lecture. It's a 2-part lecture on my YouTube page. It's called Malcolm X and the Neoliberal Assault on Democratic Rule, and I break all of that down. If anybody is interested in going to,
I would encourage people to check out Brother Omowale's YouTube channel. It is exactly as his name is spelled, Omowale Afrika, and his presentations are very insightful. Yeah, agree, disagree, or whatever. Check out the perspective, and also the information is very, very well sourced. Yeah, so please do check out Brother Omowale's presentations, bro. Before you go, because we've shot down a lot of sensibilities among the black community internationally right about now. So what do you propose? Like, there's a saying that if you make an observation, you have an obligation. Yeah, so we're not voting. Yeah, we're gonna burn the system, fire burn Babylon. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We're not dealing with Trump. Yeah, we're not dealing with Biden. Yeah, what are we supposed to do then, Brother Omowale? If we're not voting?
We are supposed to be become responsible, right, for our own reality and our own outcomes. We've been maintained in this infantilized, childlike position where all of the serious things of life we've placed into somebody else's hands to take care of for us. And as a result, we haven't built or developed any institutions to take care of those things uh, for ourselves. To be quite frank, and what I've had to do, I was having a conversation very recently with one of my jegnas, and I was saying that hey, we need an alternative to like this protest movement, and he stopped me right in my tracks and was like, he said, the protest is the alternative. He says black people have been living an alternative lifestyle for the past 400 years, right? We've been living alternatives to freedom. So when you talk about living free, you have to center those things that get you there. And the reality is, since black people have been emancipated, I don't care where we are, but especially in America, we haven't done the serious work of building the institutions that will be the citadels of our freedom. And as a result, we've had to rely on their institutions. And every year, when somebody is saying we need to break away and go do our own thing, and the reply is always, "What we gonna do? We don't have nothing." Well, we ain't never gonna have nothing if we don't, start building it now, right where we are with what we have. And that goes back to the whole Booker T. Washington, 1895, cast down your buckets where you are. Ain't nobody really trying to hear that. But at the end of the day, the way that you gain strength is by delaying gratification and embracing struggle. If you want to remain weak, then pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Right. And those are the two basic instincts of humanity: the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. And those who have psychologically studied us know that we can be manipulated by pulling those two levers. If you want to be an adult, delay that pleasure, delay that gratification, embrace that pain, because that's what's going to make you stronger. Nobody wants to embrace the pain of disconnecting yourself from the titty of America, because everybody is like, well, what about my pension? I've worked 35 years. I don't have nothing else coming to me. What am I going to do? But my question is, what are you going to do when this whole thing collapses? And you haven't built anything? So if you're an adult, you have to prepare for your future and for your children's future. And that's, what I'm arguing, at least in my generation, this is the direction that we need to be moving in.
But brother, I know you gotta go, so we're gonna let you go. Stay tuned, Kings and Queens, because I'm gonna give you a couple of announcements, and we're gonna close off with the words of Baba Kwame Ture, who has some very insightful words for us at moments like these. I'm gonna put it in your mind right now and say that I've got it in my mind to do, and I got to talk to the rest of the directors about this, but to do a post-election analysis. I never got to talk to you about the growth of the Black conservative movement and also this issue of colonization. And I'm thinking to invite Brother Jared Ball on for that one as well. So do stay tuned. We'll probably have a post analysis, because I remember you said you were looking forward to seeing the post analysis, to the post election analysis. So we'll probably have a conversation about that and see how that goes. But thank you for joining us, bro. Keep us in tune with all that is happening with the documentary, and we'll make sure that we let our audience know and these kinds of things. But keep up the good work. You're valued, and it's good to make these connections. All right.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right. Peace out, bro.
All right. Peace
out. Yes, indeed, Kings and Queens. That's Brother Omowale Afrika, of Afrocentricity International, doing that good work. Shout out to everyone that was dropping all these incisive and thought-provoking comments, like in the last 5 minutes when man had to duck and them thing there. You know what I'm saying? You're upon some joke business. I do want to let you know, however, that this coming Friday, we have another quarantine convos, another quarantine convos featuring. We're going to be going live to Nigeria. We know that what going on in Nigeria right now is very, very serious business. Very, very serious things are going on in Nigeria right about now. And so we're going to be finding out what's really going on in Nigeria as we speak to Auntie Affiong El Affiong, who is currently based in Nigeria, from Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria specifically, which is ground zero for a lot of what is going on at the moment. So we're going to be checking out the whole vibration with NSARS in Nigeria. this coming Friday at 7 p.m. We started at 8 p.m. today because Brother Omowale Afrika is obviously across the waters. And so the timing, in consideration of his time, we had to start at 8 p.m. Normally we start at 7, and we shall resume beginning at 7 p.m. From Friday, Kings and Queens. All right. So check it out. Yeah. This coming Friday, the video is already up. Or should I say the stream is already up. Let me post the stream in the chat for Uno, yeah, so that everybody can see it, yeah, and you can come and just set your reminder, all right. But that's going to be a very important conversation. We want to give thanks to everybody that has joined us today. You know what I'm saying? And I hope you got something from the conversation. I do look forward to the black community internationally having more mature conversations about our macro political development. I'm going to write what's going on in Nigeria. Yeah, this coming Friday. The link here is in the chat right about now. The link is in the chat right about now. Big up, Brother Jacob. My flight leaves right after the show, bro. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? My flight leaves right after the show. I'm ducking out. Okay, so I'm gonna go straight to Heathrow Airport, and I'm gone. All right, give thanks, bro. Right, so yeah, so check that out. As you can see the link right here. Yeah, what's going on in Nigeria? And that is we're going to be talking to Sister Affiong El Affiong of Moya Wataifa Pan-African Women Solidarity Network. So do check that out, Kings and Queens. We'll keep you in tune with the Un-American Dilemma, Brother Omowale's short documentary, and let you know how you can get in tune with that very, 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 very soon. All right, Kings and Queens, thank you for joining us. It's been a beautiful, beautiful show, very insightful. You know what I mean? Watch it back if you come late. Yeah, watch it back if you come late. And sign up to Got Kush TV. Subscribe, to Got Kush TV if you are not subscribed to Got Kush TV. Check out our website, gotkushtv.co.uk, and sign up to our mailing list. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Big things are coming for Got Kush TV in the not too distant future, and you're going to get some special perks if you are a part of our mailing list, Kings and Queens. This has been Got Kush TV. We've been speaking to Brother Omowale Afrika about the coming American election. Whether you vote or you do not vote, have the interest of black people fundamentally and primary in your heart, Kings and Queens. And always remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got kush.
If you look at the Africans in the Democratic Party, now I'm not a Democrat. I've never voted in my life in the Democratic Party, and I never vote in the Democratic Party. It's racist and it's capitalist to the core. This is understood. And I shed my blood. I shed my blood for the vote now. I want to make that clear. Some people get confused. The vote for me has never been the road to liberation. It's only the means of organizing my people. I know that. I've seen, I was a young man in Harlem when they disbarred Adam Clayton Powell. Harlem had no representation. We continued to eat and sleep and take drugs and continue life just like always. When Julian Bond was elected, when we were young and snick in Atlanta, Georgia, and they refused to seat him because of his position against the war in Vietnam. The Africans in that area, his congressional district, continued life just as we've not been having any mayors, and we've been having life, and even with the mayors now, the quality of life has not improved at all. So I've known the vote is never what? You vote for once in 4 years, and that's your political responsibility? That's the height of bourgeois propaganda, making the people politically irresponsible, thinking their irresponsibility is limited to a one-day vote. Where politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.